welcome back to Nobody Likes Recruiters. This is a podcast dedicated to you if you work in the recruitment space and you want to make your recruitment as good as possible. This is a great podcast if you're looking for ways to kind of navigate this crazy industry at the moment, where everything is off the charts, as we've spoken about in previous episodes. In this episode today, though, we're going to be talking about how to write a shit hot advert, and what one needs to do to nail this process, and where businesses like yours potentially are going wrong. My experience on the other side of like reading job adverts has been
shit.
Really bad. I don't want to swear again because I've been swearing twice within the first couple of minutes, and my mum will be well disappointed. But my nan even more so, mortified. But it is the truth. Like 99% of the adverts that I've personally seen have been very samey. That talk about, say, kind of like what the job is as opposed to why I might want to work there, and just, you know, there's just a lack of creative thinking, I think. So what's going on?
I think you're right, mate, and I think it's a good way in perspective to put yourself in the point of the candidate rather than just the company itself. But you're right, I think, like we said last time on the podcast, there's 1,300 pages of customer service roles on Indeed at the moment, just in Stoke-on-Trent. So if you're a candidate sitting down in front of your computer, you're looking down this endless list of customer service roles, and every advert looks similar or promises an exciting opportunity or, you know, X, Y, and Z, then it can get very samey, and it becomes a bit of a minefield, doesn't it, for candidates?
I think there's science behind it, you know. There's obviously science behind it, isn't it? I think what a lot of people fall guilty of or fall in the trap of is just, I suppose, doing the easy thing, just posting a load of roles and responsibilities. So like, I've got my job spec, I'll copy and paste proportions of that, put it in, and that creates an advert. When really, it's just garbage putting that out. But often what we tend to find is it isn't always a recruiter that's doing that. A lot of people that tend to do recruitment, could be a line manager, it could be a company owner, it could be somebody that really doesn't necessarily understand what it takes to recruit people. It's a process, and I think you have to treat it sometimes a little bit more than that in the initial stages with your advert.
So where exactly are businesses going wrong? Let's hone in on this. So they evidently are.
And I would say businesses and a lot of recruitment companies and professionals get it wrong right from the offset. So I think there's an art to writing a good advert, and the fundamental thing is that an advert should be treated like a piece of marketing material. It should be there to try and attract the attention of the audience, whoever's looking at, to try and grab their attention, to make them want this opportunity. And like Steve says, a lot of people just don't see the differences between a job spec, which lists the roles, responsibilities and duties, and a job advert, which is largely for attraction purposes, to get that person excited, to get them to apply, to want them to think, this is the job for me. A JD, you can't build that excitement from that list of role responsibilities.
But it takes a bit more work with your business to then be able to start to build more of a job advert, doesn't it? Which is the first probably port of call.
Pause on that thought for a second. How does it take, like what processes should a business adopt when like creating these job adverts?
So there's a couple of bits I've really on that. One is probably knowing your business, and I know that sounds really daft because you're working it every day and you know the business, but what is it about that business that is appealing? What would attract? What is it that you do differently? What's the market that you operate in? The kind of clients that you deal with, are they large blue chips, big brand names, you know, all the stuff that makes that an exciting prospect or an interesting prospect for somebody is the kind of first kind of port of call, really. But then I think just as important is a deeper understanding of the role. So I'm recruiting for an operations manager. There's 100 operations managers out there. But then what you start to find out is when we start to then talk to businesses, the role might not be fully an operational management role. It could be 50% that or 30% that with, you know, some sales, some marketing, and then the candidate profile is completely different. So then if you go and pump an operations manager job out there without having a really good understanding about what is the makeup of the role, but what makes that role great? So as an operational manager, what do I get to do differently than 90% other operational managers? What's the enjoyable part about the roles and responsibilities? How does it differ from the rest? It's really starting to spend time with the company, with the hiring manager, to start to really pick through and understand all of those
and
things.
That, Adam, and we always say to any company that's looking to put an advert out themselves, before you go out and write the advert, ask yourself the question, what's great about this opportunity, or why should somebody leave their role and apply for this position? Because the answer to that advert, the answer to that question should be used throughout the advert as the first part. So we get asked, we see quite a lot of people, and it's the age-old cliche, a lot of people say, we've got an exciting opportunity but they don't actually tell anybody why this is exciting. Yeah. So what's exciting to you might be not exciting to me. I saw an exciting opportunity for a librarian. I don't read a lot of books, so that's not going to be exciting to me, but for the right person it could be. I'm not saying it's not exciting. You've got to tell people why this is going to be exciting, why their life is going to be better, why it's going to be an improvement if they apply to this job. So don't just say it's exciting, tell them why the opportunity is exciting.
Because you don't just tick boxes, do you, that really like? So I think the easiest tick box thing to do is do that and go blah blah blah, it's a great opportunity, we can do. But I think the thing we found most different now about candidate behaviour is it isn't just about job title, it isn't just about company brand name. More importantly, years ago, I think we all used to want to work for a large company, a blue chip, a corporate. That was the aspiration. But I think, out of my experience in the last 12 months, of what we've started to find more and more is other factors are more important than name. So, if you're starting to think about a sense of culture, it's huge. If you've got a great culture, articulate that culture. How does it feel? What is it that you do that betters the life, like Lee was saying, for your employees? All that stuff starts to actually play a bigger factor at the moment than saying, we are John Lewis and we've got a job out there. You'll always have people for your brand culture, but actually the other stuff is now aligning to kind of candidates.
And that should be in the first part of your job advert, for me, higher up than any of the roles and responsibilities. So we were recruiting for another recruitment agency, a great company to work for, and we kind of started it off. We did an opening catchy paragraph, which we'll come back to in a minute, but within the second paragraph it was, do you want to work for a recruitment agency where there's absolutely no sales targets, you won't be micromanaged, you'll get the flexibility to split your time between the home and office, or both. They're flexible on start times, so it suits somebody who has to drop the kids off X, Y and Z, whatever it is. That opening paragraph, rather than just going in and saying, we want people with recruitment experience, that should almost be higher up to get the candidates to start to select in and think, actually this advert's quite a bit different, this company seems a little bit different than the other 100 recruitment jobs that I've been cycling through. So it's all about kind of capturing them initially.
But if you think that, right, so kind of on what Lee was saying there, some of the other snippets within that could be, like I said, flexible finish times, start and finish times, opportunity to study and study support and all that kind of stuff. All of these things might be little things within your business that you offer, but it starts to build an overall picture of culture. So actually, the culture then starts to say, well, actually, they have some flexibility with me. They maybe appreciate that we've got lives outside of work and we can balance that with our family commitments. They're willing to invest in me as an individual and my future. You start actually to get a feeling of what that company looks like without, telling them explicitly, if that makes sense. Actually just by the things that they do or the things that are listed in that advert, you start to think, well, they're potentially a forward-thinking company that respect people, got good values, all that stuff, and that's the stuff that people are aligning to, aren't they, at the moment, quite heavily.
You're painting a picture almost of the opportunity and the job. Right, I'm going to put you on the spot here, lads. So, and it's also a chance to do a little bit of a plug or a shill, as we mentioned in the last episode, for Logic. So you guys have been in recruitment now, combined age of 406 or whatever old you are. Been in recruitment for a long time. Obviously at Logic, if you're looking to recruit, Logic's the place to come. So let's actually give the listeners and the viewers something tangible, right? Yeah. Let's go back to the librarian, the librarian example. Yeah. how let's say you know the Stoke Council have come to you and said we want you to do an advert for a librarian.
Yeah.
What kind of things are you popping into that advert then?
So what we first of all need to do is we'd actually go and visit the library, and we would sit down and we would ask the people there that work in that environment all the time, what is great about working there? Why do you like working here? We speak to people, or the hiring managers, what you physically tell me, because we need to put ourselves in the shoes of people who are working there and enjoying it.
Yeah.
We'd maybe ask for a list of the kind of training, development opportunities, the things that are
culture,
important.
environment.
Yeah.
What is it like as a team to do librarian book reading sessions together? Like,
Yeah.
what are the, because ultimately you're trying to appeal to a demographic that appeals to.
Yes.
So you know it's something like that's not going to be a one cat fits all. But if you start to explain the intricacies around, you know, if you could have unlimited books to kind of read, and you know you get to go on and visit other facilities, you get to work across the city within all that stuff.
Vibrant members of
Yeah.
the community, and they'll also probably say, you know, I imagine they have the same people coming in. It's really nice. You get to know Ethel, and Ethel comes in and brings cakes on a Friday.
Definitely.
Little things like
Stuff
this.
like that.
Yeah.
If you can get underneath the skin, then
And
that's
that's what you need to
I
do,
see.
because people, by speaking to people who are doing the job and loving it, you get an understanding of kind of the culture, what fits in, what works. To me, the worst job would be working in a library. So without me taking the time out to go and actually get under the skin of the business, of the culture, it's hard for me then to write an advert just off the fly, off the spot.
Well, I think the tangible, right, is when we used to work internally, like, and you know, we kind of work with businesses now that have internal teams and stuff, and sometimes, again, it's a process. So the internal team gets a job spec from the hiring manager, they ping that over to us, and I suppose this could be no disrespect to some of the kind of people we deal with, but then they don't have a deeper understanding of the role. So when you start to ask them, so, you know, say for example it's a buyer, so what's the size of the category, what's the size of the spend, what they're going to be procuring, all this sort of kind of stuff, they can't give you anything other than the base level information. But when we were working at Phones for You, you know, whenever we got a role from a hiring manager, we would go and spend an hour with that hiring manager and or sit within their team. So you'd start to build a pitch then. So actually, even as lower levels customer service, so what we'll be doing, what we'll be answering, will it all be inbound calls? Will 90% of them be challenging conversations? You know, that stuff could form part of your advert, or kind of further down the line we'll talk about that initial conversation with the candidate, because you want a bit of self-selection. Some people go, well, actually, I don't like dealing with challenging conversations, you know, ain't going to be for me, but it could all form part and parcel of your overall offering. It could be that it's a customer service role with a difference, where it's largely email based, you won't be dealing with any telephone inquiries, and so it's all about really getting a level of understanding into the day-to-day activity of that role, because there'll be aspects of it that you either need to talk about or sell, you know.
And self-selection is a massive part of the advert. So in a way, we all like applications, but you want quality applications as well. So a bland advert can sometimes do the wrong thing and just draw in way too many applications as well, when really it's not narrowing down to the culture of the business, the right fit for the company as well. So it really is a balancing act on getting the right amount of candidates and not deterring, but also making your advert pop and stand out.
There's so much synergy. Again, you've just finished your point with another point that alludes to the point that I'm going to make. There's so much synergy between this and marketing.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about there building the idea of like your desired candidate.
Yeah.
And that is the same way as building an idea of your who's your customer.
Yeah.
And then you've got to create something that appeals to them. You're talking about writing an advert, and this is a point I really think people need to take away, is you're talking about benefits, not features, or leading on the benefits.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
There's so much. So that begs the question, and I've worked in marketing for 10 years and worked for big corporates, and personally I've never been asked as a marketeer to get involved. Until the current, with the work I do for Utah, I've got involved in it now, but it's different. But before that, the marketing teams were never kind of liaised on job ads. Is there an opportunity for businesses there to go to their marketing team and say, help us?
100%, 100%, because effectively, what is an advert? What is the point of it? What is the definition of an advert? And this is a job advert, and marketing principles should be applied all the way through. I think if we were looking at the marketing principles, and if we were to fully structure an advert on what we think gets the best results, and we've tried and tested, we've done training, I think the first opening line has got to be catchy. Doesn't have to be straight away the huge amount of benefits, but it's got to be eye-catching, right, to grab somebody's attention. If they are looking on their phone, cycling through, scrolling, people can apply, people can look for hundreds of jobs a minute. So it's got to be eye-catching. It could just be a couple of different sentences. I'll let you use your example. What was your example the other day, Steve?
Do you know,
with the estate agency.
Yeah, so I was doing a lettings negotiator, and do you know what? I went a bit rogue. I thought he was going to hate it, to be fair, mate. It was just like something like, do you fancy channeling in a Kirsty and Phil, or fed up with shouting at Talia Holmes under the hammer, something like that. Because,
I like it.
That's one of my probably more daftest ones I've done. But that's the bit because because I think it wasn't necessarily just targeted at lettings, people who worked in lettings or estate agency. Actually, the kind of client was open to anyone from any sector, as long as they had good customer service and compassion. So it's appealed to a whole different demographic of people that go, well, actually, that's been me. I've been tough. That I do love that show and stuff like that.
But at the same time, that opening sentence said within the advert that we are appealing to people with a passion for property, or somebody looking to get into
some
it.
form of desire. 100%.
So there's that line that's kind of eye-catching.
But then another example is like it can be functional as well, because I think you're trying to have a live example of somebody. So I came from a HR background, and Lee said there, you've got to try and put yourself in that kind of individual. So when you're going to go out there with a HR advisor advert, there's certain things that you might want to get away from or be a part of. Like, so for example, I remember we doing one and saying, so you're fed up of just doing ER, fed up of just transactional HR, and want to get into more transformational change projects. That really starts to signify what kind of HR role that is. You're not just going to be stuck doing ER-based activity and doing the defending. You're actually going to get involved in some great projects where I can grow personally. I can do more. I can do some transformational change. And so that first line is like, that's about me going, well, some of the aspects I didn't necessarily love about the job when I worked in HR was just the ER stuff. I found it, a bit monotonous and a bit boring, but actually I quite like doing all the employee engagement surveys, the more transformational stuff. So when you start to get to understand and try and put yourself into that picture, that automatically appeals to a certain kind of area of people who worked in HR, if that makes sense.
So that first opening line is mega important. From there, that's when, once you've got, and that's like the hook or something like that in marketing, once you've got the candidate hook, so this looks a bit different, or this looks quite interesting, or that's quite a funny title, the next bit should all be about a section around the company culture, the selling points, the benefits. Put yourself in the perspective of the candidate. How would getting this job benefit the life? If your company offers flexibility, get that in there. If your company offers unlimited holidays, put that in there. If it's a family-run company and all employees are treated like family, get that in there. It doesn't matter what it is. Get that information in there to start to build their desire. So now you've got the hook. Now you've built their desire. Now you start to look down, and there's a bit more about what actually does the role entail.
But we don't actually use in any of that. We very rarely use your responsibilities will include, do we?
No.
The probably next bit is just a paragraph going, as a sales manager, you'll look to develop new business, as well as manage existing accounts, so that's all mathematically saying that, well, do I need to have some potentially business development experience and some account management experience? It's not like you must have because it's just tick boxy.
And we'll be quite concise with it, because we'll have enough information in there that you need to, but you don't need to list everything that somebody requires, and must have 4 years plus account management experience, must have 3 years plus B2B experience, ideally working within engineering and manufacturing. If some of that is important, keep it in there, but you don't have to put every single description. Keep that clear and concise.
Definitely.
And then the final bit is
because that really again limits what you're going to work with. Some people will rule themselves out. We get calls saying, I noticed this job, but I've got no manufacturing experience.
So I've done that before. I self-selected myself out of roles that I may have got because I was worried that I didn't have a degree.
Exactly. And actually, are you better sometimes trying to gain a bigger pool as a recruiter, you know, and then there might be the most perfect candidate, but may have just not had some form of sector experience, but actually could fit you and your organisation, your culture, you know, all the kind of bits and pieces. So actually, sometimes try not to be totally ruling out. I mean, the caveat to that is always, you know, experience in manufacturing would be desirable, so you can always add that as a bit of a kind of line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, while Lee logs me back into his iPad, so I'm going to ask you a question, and this is a little bit off script again, but is there anything in terms of techniques that a company can use with regards to a job advert after will make it so it doesn't go off?
Yeah.
You know, just set there's no password. But this is actually a question that I wanted to ask anyway, so I'm intrigued by ways in which a business could make an advert stand out, not necessarily the things that we've spoken about, but the kind of fun things that they can do. Yeah. So could they include some kind of video that evidences their culture in a TikTok style video that's very contemporary now and linked to that? I know there's limitations if you're...
It's limited to your job boards that you can do. Some job boards do kind of video adverts. Yeah, do you know, it's funny, isn't it? A lot of that, the new media stuff, in my personal opinion, it's never seemed to take off and replace the atypical way of advertising a job on a job board. Obviously, there's loads of stuff.
Yeah, it hasn't. Like job boards. Sorry to interject.
Been around for years,
but if you'd have predicted one thing about this industry if we were making this 10 years ago. Yeah. In 2012. That's 10 years ago.
Yeah.
We met anyway.
I'm a lot younger,
but if we'd probably say, job boards will go eventually, and they haven't. So that's just an interesting point. But carry on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think it's habitual, isn't it? But I think like video-based adverts and stuff have been around probably 10 years, haven't they, or more, and it's never quite seemed to kind of replace the atypical way of placing an advertisement. I don't know whether that's because of time investment and all the other kind of stuff it takes, but
and they look too staged as well. A lot of video adverts and professionally done video adverts, and there is there is a
place for video in the recruitment process
and employer branding as well. Because, you know, there's so much you could do. You could have a great careers homepage with videos on there, and there's so much you can do with it. But in terms of your job ad, you're 90% teams.
But I think you've got to think, haven't you, about it all depends on your business. So when we're at P4U, Phones for You, I think you could get 90,000 applications per year, like just based on brand. So actually, you know, you can afford to try different ways, avenues. You've got a brand following. So actually, if you were to probably post, you know, a video even out to their groups, their kind of social groups on the pages, you gain applications probably. Although another kind of question that is actually we always battled against, back in the day, they were really against having any form of recruitment collateral going anywhere near their employer brand, not employer brand, sorry, their brand. So actually you always try to fight, say, well actually you've got 1 million people signed up to your Facebook accounts, but there was always a bit of a reluctance to put any
I remember because
it was always going to be, well actually you're going to water down our consumer brand and other kind of bits. I don't know, we're getting a bit off kind of tangent there, but so I think maybe one day there will be some kind of other things that will kind of take precedent out there, but the challenge then becomes probably bigger brands with bigger departments with lots of money to be able to produce, like you said, Lee, nicely honed job advertisement videos will probably be the dominant ones, and then your SMEs again probably will either not have the time or the know-how or whatever it is to be able to kind of do some of that. So but then again, they might use agencies.
It's great for externalising your employer brand, and some of the best employer brand videos out there are done on a shoestring budget with literally walking around offices, talking to people, showing the environment. It's all about showing people the natural working environment is the best way. And if you can articulate that and be genuine and honest in a job advert, even if it's written down, what is it like to work for me? Why is it good? Why do the people think it's good? I know why it's good. I'm going to write this down into an advert. You will notice a tangible uplift in applications. And just on that, we have noticed through some of the job adverts we've done, and we've done various tests, we've done traditional adverts, we've done bullet points, we've posted JDs, we get a huge uplift by writing a well thought out job advert that follows the marketing principles. And we have candidates that have said, oh, do you know what, I I wasn't actively
actively
looking,
but just
but there's something about this job
Nice.
that made me want to apply.
Nice, I love that.
But I think the one thing to know is like just to have a play. We don't always get it right. I mean, I always shout to her and go, "What do you think of this? Like, is it going to work? Is it too much, too little?" And I think sometimes you've got to just give it a go, haven't it? If it partly represents your brand in the right way in your company, you know.
But put some thought into it, because that's what we do. A lot of people don't, and that is the biggest mistake.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. They just don't know. A lot of people probably see endless JDs on job boards and think, oh, that's what we do to post a job.
Yeah.
We'll pop the salary, we'll pop the JD. People can have a read through it. To a degree, it works a little bit, but it's not the most effective way of getting the best applicants.
And trying to avoid, like, I suppose, look to the advert and create, not writing a great advert, but the ambiguous stuff like competitive salary and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
it generally doesn't work for driving numbers of applications. You know, people are scared to do it because of the bandings within businesses and stuff like that. But there's a noticeable difference in drop off of putting competitive salary compared to advertising a salary, you know, a bracketed amount as well.
Yeah, because competitive salary again is quite big.
To what,
competitive to what and who.
Yeah.
So lads, there's been some great stuff in here, and I think there's loads the guys can take away. Do you just want to kind of wrap this up, Lee, for me in terms of like a conclusion, your key bullet points from this conversation?
Yeah,
I don't. Key bullet points.
If he can't do it, step in.
I'll have to cut you off.
Right, bullet points. I think put a bit of thought into the job advert. Start out by asking yourself, why is this a great place to work, and build that throughout the advert. Don't post the JD in there. A good point right at the end, advertise the salary, because you'll get a 50-60% uplift in candidates from there. And
walk in your hiring manager's shoes as well.
Yeah, that's part of the process. Do that discovery kind of session with them. I like that.
Yeah, and think of it from a candidate's perspective as well.
Yeah.
So if you think there's 100 there might be 100 replica jobs to the job that I'm advertising. Why should a candidate pick this one ahead of any of the others?
Yeah.
And that's it really.
Love it, lads, love it. Again, if you are watching or listening to this, remember to add your comments underneath in whatever platform you're engaging with the podcast on. On our podcast apps, by the way, Apple and whatnot, they really like
forget the other ones.
Spotify, you can't leave a review on Spotify, can you? No. So anyway, but Apple really likes to leave a review. And also for all your recruitment needs and whatnot, the lads at Logic are available to help. So if you have got a need at the moment, you are in the market, you're looking for candidates. Obviously the lads have got plenty of knowledge, as they have demonstrated in this show, to help you with that. So until next time, thanks boys, and we'll see you again soon.
Cheers, thank you very much.